And welcome back, everybody, to the Old Gab Box podcast and radio show. Excited about another week in college football. I'll be going to the Boston College Clemson game. More on that in a minute. But first, all this brought to you by our great friends at Casa de Campo in the Dominican Republic. I invite you to go to casadecampo.com. Gilles Gagnon, who's been on our show numerous times, and he'll be on again here in about a week, he will roll out the red carpet. Go to the website, check out Gilles. If you want a golf vacay, a family vacay, it is awesome. The best golf in the Caribbean. And oh, by the way, I'll be back down in December when they cut the ribbon on Teeth of the Dog. The late, great golf course architect, Hall of Famer Pete Dye designed 4 courses there. Teeth has been undergoing a facelift thanks to the great Jerry Pate and his company. And again, in December, they cut the ribbon. I'll be there. Cannot wait. Remember, it's casadecampo.com. All right, time again for the Pigskin Prognosticator of Prodigious Proportions. And if you listen to us, you just might wake up Sunday morning independently wealthy. And our picks have been really good here as of late. I want to tell you the best teams to bet on so far against the spread this season. Memphis, 6-0. Utah State, 5-0. Ohio State, the number one team in the country, is 4-0-1. And Texas Tech, look out for the Red Raiders, 5-0 overall, 5-0 against the point spread. Alabama, by the way, is 4-1 against the spread. You lose that game to Florida State. And if you bet on the Tide, you lost. But then they've covered and won every game since, including that late touchdown last week against Vanderbilt, which was a win. The worst teams to bet on, Texas and Georgia, 1-4 against the spread. Penn State, SMU, Sam Houston, 5 against the point spread. All right, let's start off our first game. Alabama, 3-point favorite in Columbia against Missouri. Mike Kelly, the longtime play-by-play voice, great set of pipes. He will be on our show coming up on the Old Gab Box podcast and radio show. Listen for that. Ahmad Hardy is the talented running back for Mizzou, undefeated. This kid has really carried them, 730 yards on the ground, 5 touchdowns. He really is a good running back, and you have to credit the Missouri offensive line, which is doing their part. They are very, very talented road graders. I give Missouri a lot of credit. A couple of weeks ago, when Tom Luganbill was on the show, I said, is Vanderbilt the best team in the conference? And he said, well, don't forget about Missouri. So in this topsy-turvy college football season where parity has set in, Missouri is right there. Alabama, of course, on a roll, winning Georgia, winning last week at home against the talented Vanderbilt team. Can they do it again on the road in Columbia? I think they can. I just think Alabama is one of those teams now. It was a wake-up call against Florida State. With Jam Miller, they're starting to run the ball better. Defensively, still giving up some yardage on the ground, but man, they hustle. They get after you. They play really, really hard. I just think Alabama on the road will cover that 3-point spread against a very talented Missouri team. I think Alabama comes home a big win. And oh, by the way, next week when they come home to play Tennessee, it'll be the first time in the Southeastern Conference schedule for Alabama that they've actually faced a team without a loss when they face them. I thought that was interesting. Meantime, number 1 Ohio State, 16-point favorite at Illinois. We told you Ohio State 4-0-1 so far this season against the spread. And you think about who has Ohio State played? Are they good? Yeah. But they beat Texas in the opener. Texas has since then been exposed. They beat Washington at Washington. I just don't think Washington is one of the upper echelon teams in the Big Ten. This is an early start, 12 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Central on Fox. Ohio State favored by 16. Illinois, after getting embarrassed by Indiana, did come back home in that thrilling last-second game to beat USC. I think Illinois feels they have something to prove. This is an opportunity. I think Ohio State wins this game. I just don't think Ohio State covers the 16. Going with the Fighting Illini, getting 16 juicy points in that game in Champaign-Urbana. Meantime, Ole Miss hosting Washington State, a kind of a late non-con game. Usually those last non-conference games come right before the rivalry games, but nevertheless, Washington State is not very good. Ole Miss, a 32.5-point favorite. Have you had a chance to see the Lane Kiffin documentary about all his wild travels during his colorful career? I highly recommend it because it was extremely interesting. Lane Kiffin that I knew years ago, brash, outrageous, was really over the top in some cases, is now a much more mature coach, and it takes you through his start at Fresno State, his relationship with his Hall of Fame dad, the late great Monty Kiffin, his cup of coffee season with the then Oakland Raiders, 1 year at Tennessee, goes to USC, fired on the tarmac, rehabilitated under Coach Saban, goes to Florida Atlantic. I mean, it's a heck of a ride for Lane Kiffin. I'm just not sure Ole Miss will keep the pedal down to win by more than 32.5. Trinidad Chambliss back at quarterback against LSU. The young man was absolutely dynamite. Transfer from Ferris State, Division III, and he can really play. He can run and pass. I just think Ole Miss wins comfortably in this game. I would stay away from it, but if you're asking for a pick, I would give the 32.5. Washington State just is not a very good college football team. Meantime, the big game in the Big Ten, Indiana at Oregon. Got a couple undefeateds going here. The Ducks favored by 7.5. Autzen Stadium is going to be absolutely rocking. Indiana is a really good football team. Kurt Cignetti, second year as head coach, obviously knows what he's doing in this new age of college football, getting kids in, putting them in the right positions, winning the chess match with the opposing coaching staffs. When you play at Oregon, I think you're giving up a touchdown right out of the gates because of the proximity of the crowd. They're loud, they're proud, they're right on top of you, and Oregon's really talented. I like Oregon to keep their undefeated streak going and covering that 7.5. I just think offensively, in a game that I think will be an offensive game, I think Oregon outscores Indiana and scores a big win when all is said and done. How about the Red River rivalry, Oklahoma, Texas? Texas is favored by 3 in this game, mainly because John Mateer, the quarterback for Oklahoma, who really after the Auburn game, he broke a little bone in his hand in the first series against Auburn, finished the game, by the way, went and had surgery. They had a week off leading into this game. Wants to play, has been practicing. Brett Venables has been very tight-lipped, and maybe he doesn't know. He's been practicing with a glove on his hand. Again, Michael Hawkins is the backup, capable, but the offense isn't as good when John Mateer is not at quarterback, and he was a Heisman favorite before he broke the bone in his hand. Now others have passed him for Heisman hopefuls in the odds. Again, Texas has shown the inability to run the football, and against arguably the best defense in the Southeastern Conference, certainly the best pass rush, best rush defense. Speaking of Oklahoma, I think Texas will continue to struggle. I like Oklahoma getting points in the Red River rivalry. And again, another loss for Texas. That's what I think is going to happen. And Sark has had a honeymoon up to this point, but trouble on the horizon as Texas, I believe, loses another game in the Southeastern Conference. Here's the best bet, I think, on the board. Arkansas, who's had a tumultuous 2 weeks, firing of the coach, Bobby Petrino elevated to interim coach, even though he wants to be the permanent coach. Petrino immediately fires the defensive coordinator, defensive line coach, 3 members of the defensive staff, elevates some guys who were in other areas of the coaching staff. I just don't think this spells success in any way, shape, or form. And somebody said, well, what about UCLA upsetting Penn State? Again, that was at UCLA. Jerry Neuheisel calling the plays, obviously like his dad, is pretty good at what he does. Caught Penn State napping, caught Penn State off guard. Penn State obviously a little overrated, but Penn State had to go out there. Arkansas has to go to Knoxville. Tough place to play, even when you're a really good team. I think Tennessee covers this game. Again, favored by 13.5. I think it's an absolute blowout in Knoxville. That's my best bet of the week. Meantime, oldest rivalry in the South, Georgia at Auburn. Night game at Jordan-Hare. It's fun. Night games at Jordan-Hare. The camaraderie, the tailgating before the game is really special when they've had all day to get ready. The crowd's going to be all fired up, frenzied up. Again, Auburn, what we've seen so far in the Southeastern Conference, tough games at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M. The offense has shown the inability to not only protect the passer, but to run the football. They just cannot generate enough offense. A week off won't change that. It's the same players, same coach calling the plays. I just think Georgia's defense, they got it together in that second half against Alabama. They steamrolled a pretty bad Kentucky team last week. I think Georgia comes on the road and covers that 3.5. and the slide continues for Auburn. And again, the Boo Birds come raining down on the Hugh Freeze era at Auburn. That's the way I see it. I just can't see Auburn generating any offense. You got to run the football to win in the Southeastern Conference, and Auburn simply can't do it. Hey, the game I'm going to, Clemson at Boston College. I'm looking forward to going up to BC. Awesome stadium, by the way. The Doug Flutie statue in front. The thing with BC, though, Bill O'Brien, the head coach, obviously Coach O'Brien was on Belichick's staff with the Patriots when they won a Super Bowl, was on Coach Saban's staff at Alabama when they lost the national championship game to Georgia, was the head coach at Penn State, following Joe Paterno, resurrected that program, kind of put it on stable ground. Incredible coaching resume. Pretty good season last year, took BC to a bowl game, but this is a downtrodden BC team. Won their opener against a non-con, have lost 4 in a row, have not shown the ability to do much of anything offensively, and defensively they're giving up a ton of yards on the ground. Clemson got their mat off last week against North Carolina, and Dabo actually took the foot off the pedal against Coach Belichick and company. Could have been worse if you saw any highlights of that game or watched that game. I think Clemson continues as the schedule falls in their favor after the loss. Obviously, you lose to LSU at home. You lose the last-second field goal to Georgia Tech. You get shocked by Syracuse at home. For some reason, they weren't ready to play that game. I still don't know why. But now you're getting things back on track. You even things up one-loss-wise as you blow out BC. South Carolina is at LSU. LSU a 10-point favorite in this game. Another night game for the LSU Tigers. LSU is kind of a head-scratching team, right? Brian Kelly likes his squad. His quarterback, Garrett Nussmeier, still hasn't had one of those games. One of those games where everything is clicked. And you wonder why. A lot of it has to do with the offensive line at LSU. A lot of talent. Defensively, they're much better. LSU. South Carolina is capable of an upset. North Sellers, obviously very talented. I just like LSU getting this done at home. I think they cover the 10 and go away a winner there. Lastly, Kansas at Texas Tech. The Red Raiders a 14.5-point favorite, and we told you off the top they are 5-0 against the spread. If you've bet on them every week, you're a winner. You're perfect up to this point. Can they keep it going against a good Kansas team, a game Kansas team? The thing with Texas Tech, they went out and got a bunch of NIL money, and they signed the best defensive line prospects in the country. These kids are still all healthy. And if you watch the Utah game, it was on Fox a few weeks ago, Texas Tech goes to Utah and handles the Utes with relative ease. Not only squashed them defensively, but offensively, they're a dynamic football team, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech wins the Big 12. I think they go to the playoffs this year. I think they're headed in that direction, and they're not to be overlooked as parity sits in college football. I like Texas Tech to cover the 14.5 and continue being perfect against the spread. That's the way we see it. The Pigskin Prognosticator of Prodigious Proportions. Weather's good in Boston, by the way. Excited to go up there and hang out with some family and friends and check out. I'm hoping the real Doug Flutie is there. I'll get a picture in front of his statue. Hopefully the real Doug Flutie will be there. Can't wait to shake his hand and get a family pic with Doug Flutie, even though Clemson is going to cover. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week right here for the Pigskin Prognosticator of Prodigious Proportions right here on the Old Gap Box podcast and radio show.